So welcome everybody. This is the Plan Your Own Walk and Roll to School Day information session. Before we really get started, I'm going to just a little bit of housekeeping. So everybody who's on the call today, you guys are muted because we're in a webinar format. So please use the chat box for comments or questions, and we'll get to everybody's input as quickly as we can. The session is being recorded and it's going to be posted on CDTC's website channel by early next week. And if you registered for the session, then you'll be notified by email when it gets posted. So today's agenda, we're going to do an introduction, and then we're going to hear about Lake Avenue's program. Lake Avenue Elementary's program, and then Hammond-Grail Elementary's program. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about CDTC's new Walk and Roll to School toolkit and CDTC's Youth Bike Safety program. So the speakers today, Caroline Stem is with us today. She's a volunteer organizer with the Lakeview Elementary School in Saratoga Springs, and Maureen Cunningham, who's a former volunteer organizer at Hammond-Grail Elementary in Bethlehem. Caroline has been organizing at Lakeview for, let's see, I think she said 12 years or something like that, like quite an expert, and Maureen about 10 years. So, and then just to tell you a little bit about myself, my name is Rima Shamia. I'm a transportation planner at the Capital District Transportation Committee. We are the designated metropolitan planning organization for the Albany, Schenectady, Troy, and Saratoga Springs metropolitan areas. And our policy board and our planning committee oversees allocation of federal surface transportation funds for our region. And as staff, we have a team of people who provide planning and programming support for our communities throughout the region that's related to not just transportation issues, but also things like land use planning and zoning, bicycle, pedestrian, and trails planning, traffic management and modeling, and so much more. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Caroline to get started.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rima. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. I guess, Rima, do you want me to just share, or is it okay for questions as we go along?
I think in the interest of time, well, let's sort of play it by ear. If somebody has a burning question, I'm not against, taking them as we go, and I can monitor the chat. Okay,
great. Thanks. So thank you, Rima, for this opportunity to share what we've been doing at Lake Avenue Elementary. This is an elementary school in Saratoga Springs. It's an urban elementary school. Basically, almost all the kids in the area are coming from places where they can bike or walk to school, or there are quite a few. We do have some who are further out, but that makes it really nice for us to be able to organize an event like this. We get some really great participation. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about what we do and some things we've learned. What we do is pretty basic for Bike to School Day. We have bike parades, and those are led by parent and teacher volunteers. And essentially, it's what some people call biking buses or biking school buses, but we have routes and we have parents that are kind of running the bus, and they have certain stops where they pick up more kids as we go along, and they bring them all together to a corner. This is actually the corner here where we meet the last block and a half, 2 blocks, and we all ride as a giant group. So that's really fun. We have typically, well, if you count the parents on their bikes and the teachers on their bikes, there's close to 200 people riding their bikes down this last block. So that makes it really fun. And at the end, we all get together for a group picture on the stairs. What we do has evolved over time, and we can talk about that more if we want to. when I first started organizing this, I was really into thinking about things like, oh, well, let's calculate the carbon we save and, the gas we save. And we were having people estimate the number of miles they rode and like coming up with all these calculations and doing giveaways too of stickers or bike lights, sometimes vests, things like that. Over time, we actually simplified it quite a bit and just focus on the ride. And the kids and the parents get really excited about this. People have said this is kind of their favorite thing, their favorite day of the year, their favorite event that Lake Avenue does. So it really kind of creates this sense of community, it's really kind of an empowering and inspiring feeling to see this happening. So what we really try to do is just make it fun. Riding bikes is fun. And so that's really what we try to focus on. This is the Lake Avenue, the elementary, the PE teacher, who's awesome. He does a really great job of hyping up the event. He's got a lot of energy. The kids love him. He's just a lot of fun, very involved. And this is the principal who rides with him. They lead one of the parades. And for many years, they were doing it on a tandem bike. This is also fun because she's a pretty proper woman who's usually in some sort of suit and heels. And so, it's fun that she's out there on a bike, having fun, wearing her helmet, doing, riding with all the kids. And the bike over the years has broken down. And so this is now what she rides in. And, she just has a really fun time with it. And the kids all love ride. This is obviously the most popular parade to join. But they're coming from all over the city. I guess that's another thing to mention is we do try to get coverage so that people from all sorts of different neighborhoods can join a parade and have a way to get to school on bikes. This is a shot from where we're all lining up to ride the last block and a half or so into school. This Keep It Simple, it's kind of a reference to how earlier I was trying to do all sorts of things with it. And that was fun, but it led to a lot of kind of chaos as we all joined up. And so we stepped back and just said, let's keep it simple for ourselves. And the focus really just became on riding the bikes. And I feel like when we did that, it relieved the pressure off of us, but it also just, it made it a more relaxed event. And we saw that the kids were having just as much fun with it. This is a flyer that we use in the interest of keeping things simple. I basically just update it every year. I change the date, I change the rain date, and we have been participating in the contest that Rima mentioned at the beginning. So we just update on, we've been fortunate enough to have enough participation where we've consistently won the Wheel of Knowledge trophy for our area. And so we just kind of use that as a little incentive to keep people inspired to keep on doing this. This is the schedule I mentioned where we try to come from different areas, and we basically have everybody, they've got their time, the intersection where they're supposed to group. Sometimes parades are meeting up with one another because they're going to cross paths, and then they can just have a bigger parade coming in. And then we all meet, I think this is, the friendly competition. We try to emphasize the safety elements. We want to, they have to wear helmets. We want to have their bikes in good shape. And I have something to say about that in just a few minutes. And we also remind the parents, make sure they're stopping at intersections, make sure they're looking for traffic, make sure there's somebody in front, somebody in back, somebody in the middle, and you're really kind of keeping all the riders safe. And then we also have this this area here where we're all meeting up at 8:55 and we're riding that last block together. So organizing the parades, I basically have my group of people that I've done this with over several years, and I just reach out to them again and I remind them of what's going on. I try to keep the messages pretty short and sweet, using bullet points, trying to not put too much in there, but always being available for questions if they need it. We use a Google Doc for our route list, and that's nice because we can make updates to it on as we need to, and people have the link to that. So if something changes, they can just consult that rather than having to send around an updated flyer to everybody. And this clear directions of what's expected in terms of safety and where to be, where we're meeting up. We also get the word out via the PTA, via email announcements, I mentioned the Lake Avenue PE teacher. He's hyping it up during his classes. So we try to get the word out through several different ways. The principal does, she does announce or phone calls every week. And so this is included here. Again, in the interest of keeping things simple, I basically recycle these and replace the dates. And so it keeps it pretty easy to organize year to year. We also make sure that at the end, we kind of talk about how things went and if we need to make any adjustments. So I check in with all of the ride leaders and just make sure, did the timing of your routes work? Would you change anything? Did you run into any problems? And so that we can make any of those adjustments while it's all fresh in our heads. And making sure to thank them. And then we share pictures too. So let's see. This is an example of something that we, this previous point of reviewing and adjusting, seeing how things went. In the first 2 or 3 years of doing this, we noticed some kids were arriving on bikes that were not in the best of shape, kind of falling apart en route, or maybe their helmets weren't fitting well, or they just, they were kind of squirrely. They didn't know what they were doing. So we decided to start hosting in advance of the Bike to School Day of bike rodeo, where it's basically we're bringing kids together. We're providing free maintenance of their bikes, making sure, kind of basic maintenance, making sure that the brakes are in working condition, they have air in their tires, the seats at a good level, the basics. If there's a lot of work that needs to be done, then we send them off to a bike store. But trying to get things in place. And then we also have a safety course. They learn hand signals, they learn stopping, they learn to watch, if you're coming up and there are bushes, you stop and then you look beyond and make sure that there's no traffic. We have obstacles and kind of just trying to help build a little bit of bike safety and handling skills. And so that's been going really well. We get community organizations and businesses involved in that, making donations, and that's been very successful. And this year it's actually going district wide. So that's pretty exciting to see all the other elementary schools participating in that. And we make sure we are also thanking all the sponsors and people who are involved. I didn't put this in here, but we use a Sign Up Genius to organize all the volunteers. And with COVID last year, we used the Sign Up Genius to control when people were showing up, so we didn't have too many people at once. And we found that actually worked really well and helped to space things out. And so that's something we're going to continue post-COVID. So we don't have all the people showing up at the time or trying to get their bike fixed and having a long line. We can space things out a little better. So just a few summary points. Making it fun. Biking is fun. We really just focus on having a good time and keeping it simple so that we can make sure that we're able to do this year to year without like any major burden on anybody. Maybe one thing I didn't mention, and I know Maureen's going to talk about this a little bit too, but we do, the police end up being available to kind of control traffic on certain busy streets. And that's been really helpful having their participation. So clear, short communications, and then just pausing and making sure that we make any adjustments that we need to make so that we're ready for the following year. That's it.
Thank you so much,
So,
Caroline. If anybody has any comments, like I said, or questions, you can just put them in the chat, and we can address them as we go, or like Caroline said, she was fine with that, or we can just address them at the end. We can have a Q&A session at the end. Oh, and there's one right up. So Meg, Caroline, how many participants did you get the first year, and how has it grown over time?
great question. It's definitely grown over time. I would say the first year I don't know the first year, honestly, but I do remember when it was around 100, and now it's closer to 150, 200. And so it's and last year, I think in 2019, we skipped it in 2020, but 2019 was a big year, and I think it was just over 200. So it's definitely grown. And we have some people who are from further away that come in and they park their car somewhere and they meet up with a bike parade. So that's nice where we can offer that opportunity too for if the kids are able to get a little closer in town. Last year too, we had a group that was a couple miles out, and it's more of a it's a little bit of a harder ride in, but a lot of these people are part of a local mountain biking group. And so they were like, let's do it. And so I think they had 25 or so kids coming from that neighborhood. So that was great. It was good to see people kind of self-organizing and making sure we could have coverage from even further spots.
And Rogerio asks, are these events held once a year or more often?
So we do Bike to School Day once a year. We have talked about doing it more often because people love it so much, but we only do it once a year. And in part to, I don't know, I could see doing it twice a year, but we didn't want to do it too often because then you might have participation waning, and some of the fun and energy around it would not be as great. We used to do Walk to School Day. That happens in, I think, the end of September. So we did that for several years, but that wasn't, it's people participate, but there wasn't the same energy and enthusiasm around that. And many of these kids already walk to school, so it wasn't all that novel. So we just, again, in the simplicity, with the simplicity lens, decided to keep it to a single day. And we do it on Bike to Work Day. We don't do the official Bike to School Day because Bike to Work Day is a Friday, and Fridays are more fun. And also there's other things going on in the community. So it makes it kind of, people feel like they're part of a bigger thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things sort of morph over time. Caroline, that you and I, Maureen, we actually haven't, I don't think we've talked about Bike to Work and what's going on with our regional Bike to Work program, but it's actually our regional Bike to Work program is being held on a Wednesday this year on June 1st because so many people are working from home on Fridays that we thought that the rate of the participation rate would just go way down if we tried to get people to ride to work on a Friday, because so many people would just be at home on a Friday. So yeah, so what day is Lake Avenue holding its Bike to Work, or I'm sorry, Bike to School event this year?
I think
Is it
it's May 20th.
May 20th.
Is it May 20th or 21st? Yeah, it's
National Bike to Work Day.
Yeah.
Or National Bike to School Day. Sorry, I have Bike to Work on my brain because I've been like knee deep that program as well. Yeah. Okay. So we actually have the questions are coming thick and heavy, which is great. And I think we'll be able to get to a lot of them, or maybe some of them will actually be answered in Maureen's portion and my portion too. So why don't we move on to Maureen's, and then we can circle back to some of those questions.
Hi, everyone. Maureen Cunningham. I'm a resident in Bethlehem, New York, and I launched the walk and bike to school days for Hammer Girl Elementary. Hammer Girl is in Delmar, New York. It's a school with roughly around 375 kids. It's very much a neighborhood school in Delmar and very, very walkable and bikeable. There's most of the students, the big majority, don't even have to cross a major street to get to the school. So we are lucky in having that neighborhood school. And I will say I'm now, in part because of my involvement in the walk and bike to school days, I'm now on the town board in the town of Bethlehem. So this has led to bigger things for me personally. And we do, just to start out, we do have a walk to school day in the fall, in the first week of October, and the bike to school day, we usually follow the bike to school day, which on this case this year is next Wednesday. Next slide. So a lot of the themes that Caroline mentioned, we do a lot of the same things. I think Caroline kind of alluded to it. It's very formulaic to make it easier for volunteers. So you just whip out that formula every year so that you can get it done. The first year I planned it, somebody said, oh, you don't have enough time. I'm a firm believer you can get anything done. You just need a few days to let the community know. One of the first steps I always take is reaching out to a bunch of people in town, namely the police. Our police were super supportive of this event. They would have a bike patrol. You can see him there on the right. And he would be there every year biking and walking if it was a walk to school day with the kids. We also had police patrols by car around town, around the area. And I even saw them pull over people in that time frame for speeding. So it's very much a safety event. And the police are great to have on board. District administrators, it's not necessary, you know, if you're short on time, but the more you can engage more members of the community. In this case, we did have district administrators involved. The school principal is obviously key, and school staff. We have a bike and ped committee in town, which I was on, which is why I launched this event. So involving them, any other town staff, and the highway department, and I'll tell you why the highway department might be key in the next slide if you want to move. So you can see on the right, I would pester the highway department to put up mobile signs around town, just letting people know that week that this event was coming, because obviously driver safety is important. We did have a few other schools in town that did some kind of events, bike and school date events. So letting the whole town know to be watchful for pedestrians and riders is important. We also, like Caroline had a flyer, you can get this flyer, a template from the walk bike to school website, which is really critical. Like Caroline, I just took out this same formula every year and just put in new information, new dates, and you could get it done in literally 5 minutes. I would also put in safety information and information about the plan. And if you go to the next slide, I'll talk about what we did. Like Caroline, we had walking and biking school buses. So for walk to school day, walking buses, for bike to school day, biking school buses. In the flyer, I would designate the bus stops. I would also designate parents and officials as volunteer bus drivers, just leading the kids, making sure everything's safe, making sure you're walking left, riding right, depending on whether you have bikers or walkers. And then I also kept the same stops every year, again, to keep that formula. The more you have it down to a formula that you use every year, the easier it is to organize. So it was the same stops every year, every time, so people knew what to expect. Next slide. We did have greeters at school. I know some schools do and some don't. We felt like it was fun to have a kind of collection point at school, to do handouts. The first year someone donated plastic bottles, I felt like it was not in line with the environmental part of a bike and walk to school day. So I eliminated that. And we got donations from Hannaford or Price Chopper for apples and bananas. The kids loved it. It often coincided with our Healthy Kids Week or day. And we were able to donate apples and bananas that were left over to a food drive that was going on. So that worked out well. We did get bike lights, safety vests over the years from CDTC, which I still see kids riding with their safety vests. We actually use them in my house. So that was great. And we did give out stickers, which we actually used for our head count. It became really hard with so many kids riding to count their numbers. And I'll tell you why it's important to count them later. But it was important for me to just have some semblance of a head count to give out stickers. So you knew everyone you gave a sticker to, you could count. Any leftover stickers, I always handed back to the school. They expected me. Anything left over, I always set aside for any kids that were not walking or biking that day so that they would have them at school and they could give them out. Because we have a bike and ped committee in town, you could link a lot of the stuff we were doing for the walk and bike to school day with other initiatives going on in town related to safety. I loved this role model sheet, which I put on the other side of my flyer because it was a sheet that parents and kids had to sign. And basically, it agrees to some safety protocols for pedestrians, for cyclists, and also for drivers, which I also liked because parents could review this and also be a part of kind of the safety information. If you want to go to the next slide. I think Caroline mentioned a bike rodeo. We often in May, especially have events. We have a bike expo, I think it's called the Walk and Roll Day. In May, we have the Bike to Work Day. So you can connect this event. You don't have to keep it simple in Caroline's words, but if there are other events and initiatives going on in town, it's good to kind of build excitement around it. This is one of our police officers. They have a program handing out stewards cards to kids that are riding with helmets on. And that could be any time of year, but that often coincided with our bike to school day. Is just the police would be out there giving out Stewart's ice cream cards for any kids wearing helmets. And it's just such a great initiative and coincides with our event. Next slide. I just wanted to say this because the reason why I launched the Hammer Grill Elementary Walk to School Day, I think in 2012, was because the town was applying for a Safe Routes to School sidewalk grant. And the Walk to School Day became part of the grant application. We did get those sidewalks, which is a great success story. A couple years later, because I was involved with the walk and bike to school days, I saw there was a grant opportunity to get bike racks through the New York Bike Association. And we actually did apply and got bike racks, which I just think the application, having a bike and walk to school day can lead to many other other things. So you don't have to stop there. I agree, keep it simple, but the more you run this event, the more opportunities I think there are for other benefits. Next slide. Like Caroline, I think Caroline, and I'm starting to put the dots together, you won for Saratoga County every year. Well, Hammer Grill was the winner for several years of the Wheel of Knowledge for Albany County, I believe. We had, I think we started out, we always had huge numbers. I would say out of a school of 375, we had 250 people walking or biking at times, even on the rainiest of days. I never canceled an event. And we won the Wheel of Knowledge several years. That's the principal on the right. He's no longer there. I will say, I also launched an event at the middle school, which was sort of cut short because of COVID. But there became a little bit of a competition between the schools in Bethlehem. So the principal, Mr. K on the right, would call the principal of the middle school and say, I bet we're going to have more kids riding than you will. So they were even competing against themselves. And that was great because, you know, you want to build that excitement. Next slide. So my lessons learned, again, very similar to Caroline, engage as many partners as you have time to do. I would say starting with the police, but you can invite local elected officials, you can invite the district administrators, you can talk to other schools, even if you're not involved, and say, hey, are you going to do this event? I think as much as possible, framing it as a community event and linking it to other initiatives in the community helps kind of build that community spirit. Agree completely with Caroline and keeping it simple. Also agree on building excitement and making it fun. I would say the fun is obviously a priority, but also the focus on safety. I actually pulled over a couple parents at times and asked them to put helmets on. You know, it's not easy to do, but I actually did that a couple times because the message is about safety. And as much as we can have the parents involved in that, the better. And then create a tradition. I talked about a formula to have. I think as much as you can have that expectation that every year you're going to have a walk to school day event and a bike to school day event. People expect it. People look forward to it. It becomes part of the fabric of your school. And then continue to replicate it. We, like I said, launched an event at the middle school. The middle school principal kind of took it on with minimal effort needed from volunteers, but if you can replicate it in other schools in your district, it's great to do that as well. Next slide. I think we're done. So thank you, everyone. Hope everyone gets out there on their bikes this month. Rima, you're on mute. I don't know if it's just me, but I can't hear Rima. So let me see if it's me.
Should we, yeah, I can't hear her either. Maybe she's having trouble unmuting. Oh, wait, I think. You there now, Rima? Maybe I'll jump in.
There are some questions too, Caroline.
Hello?
So,
yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm so sorry. I have too many windows open and I lost track of my unmuting button. Thank you so much, Maureen. That was, and both of you, thank you so much. The information and just all of it was just, it's so great to hear from two people who have done it, you know, so long and so well. And the level of detail and the information that you're providing, I think, is just going to be so incredibly helpful for so many people in our region to, you know, to be able to bring to their communities and implement. So thank you so much, both of you. And I just want to check the chat to see if there's any question. Do you let people ride if they don't sign the pledge? I actually had that question too. I was wondering like how you used that pledge. Oh, I forgot what you called it. It had a cute name. It had a
Role model pledge. It was called the role model pledge.
Yes, role model pledge.
So, I mean, that's an example of, we probably could have done more, but we put it on the backside of our flyer and asked people to bring it to school the day of the event, and there was also an email address. It was actually an email address to the town committee. So if they wanted to email it in, the main point for me was providing that information, but I'm sure you could do actually more in making sure everybody actually submits it, which I didn't have the bandwidth to do. Like some people submitted it, some people didn't, but it was out there.
It was just sort of a way to like get people to, you know, sort of nudge them to be a little bit more serious about thinking about these things.
Yeah, and what I liked about it is it was done by the Bike and Ped Committee in town, who includes a lot of, you know, some expertise in safety. And so I liked that it had, you know, safety for walking, for biking, and for drivers. So that was important to me, but I'm sure you could do even more with it than I did.
I really like that it had information like safety tips for drivers, because a lot of time when we're talking about bike and pedestrian safety and bike pedestrian planning, we tend to get really bogged down in talking about like what bicyclists and pedestrians can do to be safe and what they need to do to be safe. And really, like, the reality is like a lot of how to keep them safe is to educate drivers better. So, you know, and I think that's a point that should or can be highlighted more often. So I like that. And then Katie asked, what does the Bike Ped Committee do with the sign pledges when the families emailed the sign form?
Again, we took them in. I think they became part of our mailing list for, you know, outreach, but nothing more than that.
Okay. Rogerio, any school with experience on events for and by middle and high school, kids at the age when they start to obsess about getting driver's licenses and buying cars, and whose energy can be diverted to help organize their own events and can independently walk or bike to school if motivated.
So I'll let Caroline speak, but the middle school, we did launch an event and it's been very thrown together. In fact, I just emailed the middle school principal this week to see if we could throw one together for next week. And it's been really successful in terms of tons of kids will end up biking. I think it's partially because a lot of those kids from Hammer Girl just know the drill and they're the ones closest to the middle school. I have yet to do something at the high school. My kids are both going to be in the high school next year, so who knows? But I would love to see that in the high school.
Okay. I have a few slides that I want to present that, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some CDTC resources that are available to you all as potential or current organizers of walk and roll events at schools. This year we put together a walk and roll to school toolkit. Hopefully, I think it may be a little bit ambitious to say everything you need to know to hold a great event for your school, but hopefully it has almost everything you need, if not everything. And a lot actually of the kinds of things that Caroline and Maureen were talking about today are included in here, including links to some online resources. So it starts out just sort of going step by step, you know, how to go about sort of putting together an event. You know, one, form a team. These are the kinds of entities that you should think about when you're forming your team. Places, people like community organizers or leaders, the police, teachers, parents, school administrators, business owners, youth leaders, people like that. And then, you know, figure out like what you want your event to look like. And then it includes some event ideas like walking school buses, this idea of like a park and walk parade. So those, you know, for those families who live too far away to walk or bike, they can sort of drive in, you know, identify sort of a parking lot location that's far enough away from the school where they could drive in, but still have, you know, sort of a fun enough walk or bike in. So that's one idea. A bike train event or a walk at school event, you know, come to school and then do a walking event. And then, you know, talks a little bit about the possibility of offering incentive items and what those items might be, doing pre-event pedestrian and bicyclist safety events like bike rodeos. And we have funding this year to put some of those together. So I'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit. You know, this idea about like possibly inviting guests, you know, local dignitaries like the mayor or city council members. I think one of the ideas that I heard or I saw online somewhere was like, you know, invite your local like high school football team, you know, those big kids that some elementary school kids like look up to, you know, they could sort of double as volunteers as well. Step 3, get buy-in from the school. You know, obviously you need your principal to be on board and have some tips about how to, you know, communicate ideas for an event like this to school administrators who might be new to it. Recruit volunteers, then finalize your event plans, promoting the event, and then, you know, actually celebrating the day, doing event follow-up that I know Caroline pointed out is actually a really essential thing, especially if you want to be doing this year after year, which of course we all do, want to be making this a regular annual thing. I put together a sample timeline, just a very rough sort of outline to get an idea of, you know, how long something like this might take, unless you're superhuman like Maureen and can just, you know, like by sheer will make it happen. And then some tips for first-time organizers. You know, it's okay to start small. You can plan early if you can. Obviously get the principal on board. You know, don't do it by yourself, recruit help. Try to include all your students. You know, not everybody has a bike, not everybody lives within walking distance. You know, think about those things, things like that. You know, think about ways to communicate with your parents. And then there's this section about outreach tools. So it provides some templates on things like there's a backpack letter template, a sample email, some school communication templates, a newsletter article template, and then there are safety tips handouts for students, and then the top 5 reasons to walk to or bike to school, and then a 2-page like talking points that can be used for organizers and volunteers if you're trying to, you know, communicate with those school administrators or with some business that you're soliciting donations for, or a city official or somebody who's not really familiar with this concept of walking or biking to school and why it's a good thing and why they should be supporting it. There's a list of talking points that can kind of help you structure your pitch. So here's the sample, you know, content. Safety tips, you know, walk left, ride right, you know, wear high visibility gear, things like that. There's a section for on tips for everybody. Things like, you know, don't text while walking or biking, and things specifically for walkers, like, you know, what to do to cross the street properly, and then specifically for bikers. And then because helmets are so frequently worn incorrectly, I included a schematic about how to fit a bike helmet correctly. So And that is it in a nutshell. And the idea with this toolkit is that we'll continue to update it and make changes to it. I think it's quite text heavy. I would like it to be a little bit more graphically interesting. So over the years, I'm going to be making it look more visually interesting and adding in pictures of, you know, bike to school events and walking parades and things like that. So there's that. And this will be available as a Word doc so that you can easily capture the text and modify it as you see fit. And another item that I want to share is I think somebody asked a question about what resources we have available for us or to you all. I don't want it from the beginning, but I don't know how to get it. Yeah, starting here. So one of the things that CDTC offers to event organizers are bicycle and pedestrian safety materials. We have an online order form. You can go in, the bit.ly URL is right here. It's also available online, or I can send you the link directly if you email me. And you can request things like coloring books, activity books, safety bracelets, and other educational materials. The text, the pictures are kind of small, but we have a whole slew of pedestrian and bicycle sort of safety tips, like palm cards and posters and things like that that can you can post, you can give out to sort of get people, you know, remind people and get them thinking about, you know, how to be safe on the street. And I have a few of the items with me today. So Sprocket Man is a comic book. He is a superhero that tells people how to properly ride their bikes and follow traffic laws and traffic rules while they're on their bikes. He's a pretty strong superhero that saves the day by, you know, telling people how, you know, how to be safe on their bikes. So it's for sort of older kids, I would say, like, you know, older elementary school kids. And then there's this activity booklet called Getting There. That's like a coloring book activity booklet that's for younger kids. And it's has some much simpler content. It has, you know, it has like this really simple sort of activity about, like, you know, draw footprints in the crosswalk to show where you would cross the street. So, you know, gets them thinking about, like, where is it safe to cross the street? Like, here's the crosswalk, you know, would you cross in the middle of the intersection? Would you cross mid-block? Like, no, you would put the footprints like in the middle of the you know, inside the crosswalk. So you know, sort of like teaching basic traffic rules and traffic laws. And then we also have these currently, we actually have what we offer in terms of like sort of fun safety, you know, safety gear sort of varies, like we'll rotate out with different things, but this is one of the things that we're offering right now, which is these like fun light up bracelets that blink different colors, depending which bracelet you pick. And they're fun and they're colorful and they blink, but they also have a safety component to them in that they draw your attention. So that if you are out on the street at dusk or after dark, you can have this on your backpack, on your wrist, on your bike, and it can help increase your visibility. And then last but not least, we are offering a youth bike safety training program this year. It's the first year of the program. There's going to be a League of American Bicyclists certified instructor who's going to be working with us to offer youth bike safety trainings. It's going to be offered through our Capital Coexist mini grant program. which some of you might be familiar with. If not, you can go onto our website, the CDTC website. It's cdtcmpo.org. I can put that in the chat. Which the solicitation is going out, I believe, next week. And so sponsors can, or hosts can apply for this funding and work with us to create an event with a league certified instructor to hold something that's similar to a bike rodeo, but it's a little bit more heavy on like the training of the like a little bit heavier on the safety training in terms of like a little bit more methodically learning the rules of the road. So it's going to have a little bit more of an emphasis on making sure that the kids are learning the safety rules. But it could also have bike tune-ups, helmet fittings, and there's potential for funding for things like bike giveaways, or I'm sorry, not bike giveaways, bike helmet giveaways, and other safety gear. And so that's the long and the short of the offerings that CDTC has this year. I want to say thank you all for attending. I know there's been quite a bit of activity in the chatter, in the chat box that I haven't had a chance to take a look at yet. But we have a few more minutes for questions. But this last slide has my contact information on it. So everyone, please feel free to email me or give me a call at the information here. And I'll also put it in the chat right now. And we can go to the question. Work. All right, let's see. Did I share did you share the toolkit with us yet? I have not shared the toolkit with you yet. I need to do that. What I can do is when I once the recording is finalized and uploaded onto YouTube, I'll send an email out notifying everybody that it's complete, that it's available, and then I can also let you know where you can access the toolkit and whatever the link to the the educational materials form and things like that. Katie asked, Maureen, where did you print the stickers? And did the school help with that, or did you use an outside source?
Well, I did answer it in the chat, but
I'm sorry.
I just printed them myself, but go to that website because they have logos and you can do it with the logos. But yeah. Okay.
And I see you put a version of the role model pledge in the chat. So I would love to be able to share that with, in the email that I send out following the session, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I found it on the Bethlehem website, so it's there somewhere. It's old because it has the old supervisor on it, but and you could take portions of that, however you want.
Okay. Okay, what else? Talking points timeline too. I think that's about, looks like that's about it for questions. Great. Well, if nobody else has any questions, we can wrap up. Thank you again, Caroline and Maureen. I think this was, I got a lot out of it. I'm trying to help my elementary school organize a walk and roll event this year for the first time, and I haven't done it before myself. So I actually, this is going to be immensely helpful to me, on that little personal endeavor. But I think that we're going to get, I think this is really helpful to a lot of people. So thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I think everybody else has too. So with that, I think we'll sign off. Everybody have a great Friday and a great weekend.
Bye. Thanks, Rima.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Yes,
Caroline.
thanks for organizing this. Bye.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Thanks for participating.